In the headlines to the CBC NewsNight, disruptions mar day 2 of the DLP's annual General Conference. Government to provide counselling for the 12-year-old injured in a recent shooting. And in sports, Barbadian boxers missed their mark in the steel shed.
Broadcasting from our studios in the Pine St. Michael, this is CBC NewsNight, starting now.
Good evening and welcome to the CBC NewsNight. With the details, I'm Wendy Burke. Chaos erupted on day 2 of the Democratic Labour Party's annual conference when an attempt was made to reinstate 2 expelled senior members. Supporters of former President Dr. Ronnie Yearwood and former General Secretary Steve Blackett tried to have them return to the post, prompting party officials to call in the police. Before their arrival at the DLP's George Street headquarters, reports had even surfaced that Dr. Yearwood and Mr. Blackett had been reinstated by members of the party. In fact, Dr. Yearwood had taken to the stage to thank his supporters and send a message to his detractors.
If the Democratic Labour Party fails to become the great institution again that it can become, the country fails. We all will suffer. That is just the reality, and I do not understand how people who have passed their sell-by dates do not get that. Your season has ended. Your time has come to an end. Stand aside and let the youth, let the women of this party take their full place and do what we have to do.
The notion that Dr. Yearwood was reinstated was, however, dismissed by opposition leader Ralph Thorne, who was flanked by members of the DLP's executive and other members, as he later held a press conference to explain what happened.
All we wanted was a peaceful conference. All the people of Barbados wanted was a peaceful conference. And they gave us the undertaking that they would do that. We resumed the conference. And as soon as we resumed the conference, under the watch of the Barbados Police Service, the commotion began again. The singing, the chanting, the disturbance, and the 2 expelled members then presented themselves and walked into the hall and were greeted by those what I call renegade persons, whose decision it was today, a deliberate decision to disrupt this conference, to disturb this conference, and to breach the peace.
Mr. Thorne says while several attempts were made to continue the conference, it was interrupted each time. He is expressing disappointment with how the police handled the situation.
I understand the last suggestion that they made to Mr. Worrell is that we suspend it. So here was the Barbados Police Service being requested to come to our assistance. And here was the Barbados Police Service declining to act on behalf of the citizens of this country called the Democratic Labour Party. This party that suffered a breach of its peace today. And they had the temerity, not all of them, not criticizing all of them, but we feel aggrieved that we lost the support and the protection of our Barbados Police Service today.
Mr. Thorne says there are plans to continue the conference. Government will be providing counselling and other assistance for the 12-year-old girl injured during a shooting incident. Minister of People Empowerment and Elder Affairs Kirk Humphrey says he's asked the Child Care Board to intervene and offer all levels of psychosocial support to the girl and her family. Mr. Humphrey says children need to be protected against such acts of senseless violence. He was speaking to the media during a visit to Silver Hill Christchurch, where the incident took place.
I feel that the time has come in Barbados. Yes, I'm a social scientist, so of course I support community policing. I support strong community programs, finding activities for young people. But I'm at the point too where I support very strong policing. And I feel that we have to give the police the authority and a greater level of flexibility and a greater level of freedom to be able to intervene when it comes to these acts. Now, of course, when I say that, I know As we've seen in the recent past, at the moment the police have to do something, people take videos, they post them on social media. There are a number of complaints against the police, but we have to determine what kind of society we want to live in. Either we want law and order, or we don't want law and order. And I support very, very strong policing, and we have to give the police the support that they need to have to be able to do this.
The girl was among a group of children playing outside her home when a man emerged from a vehicle and sprayed the area with bullets. She suffered injuries to one of her wrists and one of her legs and was taken to the Queen Elizabeth Hospital by neighbors. Meanwhile, Member of Parliament for the area, Minister of Environment and National Beautification Adrian Ford, is calling on family members to encourage their relatives to put down the guns.
Now, if you're a mother and you see your son with a gun or an illegal weapon, it's your responsibility to say to your son or your charge that you are doing something that is wrong and to stop it. And that's the only way we can help pull back our society, because there are one or two things that will happen here. You will either get a jail cell or a grave cell.
Former First Lady of South Africa, Her Excellency Dame Graça Machel, has reminded Barbados that unlike the time of slavery, citizens have an opportunity to chart their own future. Dame Graça, the widow of former President of South Africa Nelson Mandela, wants black people to be masters of themselves and not allow anyone to look down on them. The advice was shared as she sat down with Chief Executive Officer of the National Cultural Foundation, Carol Roberts, for a public discussion titled Reflections on the Road to Freedom. It formed part of activities to commemorate International Day in Remembrance of the Slave Trade and its abolition.
We still, allow people to look down on us. And it looks like we are accepting the abnormal. We normalize the abnormal. It's as if it's okay for people to treat us with disdain, to treat us with disrespect, to treat us as if we are not full human beings. Yes, but let's face it. Even in the so-called developed countries, black people are not treated like that. No, they have citizenship. They are not treated like that.
Dame Graça says black people and Africans have to assert themselves and internalize that they have rights just like anyone else.
The fact that we have a black skin or dark skin, it doesn't define me how I think, how I act, and how I relate to other people. It doesn't. And that is the issue.
Prime Minister Mia Motley acknowledged the strides made since slavery, crediting this to the building of resilience. She notes resilience will also be needed in tackling crises faced today.
But we live in a world where we have been reduced to individualism. And it is the concept of Ubuntu, called by those in Africa, Ubuntu. I am because we are. But in our own little way, we have it. Because I keep making the point that the most powerful statement in this country is 3 words. We is we. We is we. Because it sets out the principle of solidarity.
Coming up, 2 men charged for a deadly shooting. 2 young men charged in connection with a deadly shooting near a bar in Durance Village in St. James over 2 weeks ago have been remanded to Dodds Prison. That shooting claimed the life of Jaden Joel Murray, 23, of Halls Village No. 1 in St. James, and left another man injured. The 2 men were walking towards the bar when a number of masked men opened fire. The gunman also opened fire on another man who happened to be an off-duty police officer as they were fleeing the scene. There was an exchange of gunfire during which 2 of the assailants were injured but managed to flee the scene. King Aziz Carter, 21, and Lamar Marlon Charlemagne, 26 years, both of Riss Road, St. James, appeared in court today to face a number of charges. They were jointly charged with murder, wounding with intent, endangering the life of Komi Jemet, possession of a firearm, and use of a firearm. The duo is expected to return to court on September 16th. Barbadians have been encouraged to follow the example of the late trade unionist Dennis Clark in championing the cause of the voiceless. The former General Secretary of the National Union of Public Workers was laid to rest Friday. Kishmar Singis reports.
The accolades were numerous as family and friends paid their last respects during the funeral service for Dennis Clark. Prime Minister Mia Omor-Motley, along with representatives of the trade union movement, were among those present for the service at the St. Luke Anglican Church. Reverend Yolanda Clark says Mr. Clark was a man citizens can learn from. During the homily, she said he took the words of St. Paul to heart and did not weary in doing good.
There are too many of us that throw our hands up and say, nothing gonna change. How can it change when we do nothing? How can it change when we are content to say, Brother Dennis was a good man? That's it. Rather than saying, Brother Dennis was a good man and I want to be like him. I want to follow in the way that he lived his life. I want to champion those. I want to rally behind those who would otherwise have no champion.
Son Stefan Clark shared that his father defended workers to the end.
I defended every last person to the best of his ability. And y'all don't understand the sacrifices that man made for a lot of the workers in Barbados. The thousands of people that he stood up, he marched, and he protected. My father he had no social life. You go in the supermarkets and you can't get through an aisle. Somebody has a problem. You can't go out to enjoy anything because somebody always had a problem and he never turned on anyone.
The Caribbean Public Services Association, in paying tribute, noted that Mr. Clark served Barbados and the region with dignity. Thomas Lee Thang shared that the association plans to honor his memory.
We are already thinking of how we are going to honor the memory of Brother Clark. And I can say to you, one of the things we have already decided upon is that we're going to have an annual memorial lecture in the name of Brother Clark. That among other things.
Dennis Clark was buried in the churchyard of St. Luke Anglican Church. Rest in peace. Kishmar Singis, CBC News.
Sports time. Good evening. I'm Damien Best. Well, Barbadian boxers had a tough time on day one of the Barbados Boxing Association Ronald Wilson Memorial Tournament last night. Let's take a look at the action from the Queen's Park Steel Shed.
First in the ring, Malachi Grant of Belfield Gym in the red corner versus Jermaine Eswick of Eswick Gym in this novice section. Eswick looking more technically sound than Grant in this light middleweight clash. There were a lot of punches missed, but the encounter went the distance as Grant started to tire towards the end. Judges awarding the fight to Eswick in the blue corner, which was a fair decision. In the middleweight section now, the Sean Codrington of Belfield Gym versus Shakir Johnson of Fort Hill Gym in the blue trunks. Johnson with the slight height advantage and a superior reach. Well, that didn't stop Codrington from coming inside. Johnson taking a shot to the head. And as this one progressed, it was Codrington who would make his debut in the ring count with the victory. Time to get into the regional portion of the card. Keon Britton of Guyana in the red trunks versus Aaron Codrington of Barbados. No time to waste, punches flying everywhere. Britton's footwork and movement around the ring will score heavily in the judges' book from a technical standpoint, while Cadogan hoping that one of his headshots has an impact. By the third and final round, the judges were clear in their decision-making. Britton of Guyana edging the local boy Cadogan. The overseas contingent made it 2-2 when Teron Wentz in the blue trunks outboxed Jaheim Eswick in the welterweight division. The question was, could Wayne Clark of Barbados in the blue now regain some ground in the following bout as he took on John Didier of St. Lucia? Well, the answer was no, as Clark was hit with a lethal combination from the first bell. And it didn't get any better as the St. Lucian left Clark weak in the knees and perhaps contemplating his future. In fact, his corner threw in the towel and Didier will secure the victory just a minute and 29 seconds into the first round. Open elite section next, featuring two light welterweight bouts involving Barbadians. First, Maxime Alexandre of Martinique in the red trunks versus local boy Abishé Jean-Baptiste. Alexandre registering some important points. Jean-Baptiste with work to do in the future. And finally, on our highlights reel, Peter Murray of Barbados versus Colin Lewis of Ghana in the red corner. Lewis measured his punches to perfection, while Murray sought to eliminate the reach of his opponent coming inside, but that's always a dangerous proposition. Case in point, the referee eventually stopping the fight. Lewis with the victory. Indeed, it was a rough night for Team Barbados on day one of the Ronald Wilson Memorial.
Well, as we reported last night, Nicholas Pooran smashed an unbeaten 65 from 26 balls in the West Indies' 7-wicket victory over South Africa in the first T20 at the Brian Lara Cricket Academy. Set 175 to win, the Windies reached the target on 176 for 3 with 13 balls to spare. Shea Hope assisted with 51 and Alec Athanaze added 40. Now earlier, South Africa recovered from 42 for 5 in the 8th over to post 174 for 7 in their 20 overs. Tristan Stubbs led with 76 off 42 balls and Patrick Cougar 44. Matthew Ford was impressive. He took 3 for 27 and Shamar Joseph 2 for 40. And finally, Yasmin Eastman is into the final of the under-11 girls singles section at the Caribaco Junior Badminton Championships being played in Aruba. Eastman defeated Suriname's Michaeli de Gama in straight sets today in the semifinals, 21-11, 21-4. The top Barbadian seed will play Lafayette Stephanus of Suriname in tomorrow's finale. And that's it for sports tonight. The weather details coming up next.
Forecast for tomorrow, the sun is expected to rise at 5:47 and will set at 13 minutes past 6. Now the first high tide, that's expected at 5 minutes after 8 in the morning, the first low at 8 minutes to 2 in the early morning. The seas are calm to moderate in open water with swells peaking at 1.5 meters. The winds, they're coming in from the southeast to the southeast and they're just around 20 kilometers per hour. For us here in Barbados tonight, we can expect cloudy skies along with clear periods, showers, and a very slight chance of some isolated thunderstorms. Over the next 3 days, occasionally cloudy skies, along with some showers can be expected. That's Sunday into Monday. By Tuesday, a tropical wave is expected to maintain cloudy skies along with showers.
That's our news. Thanks for joining us. Continue to enjoy your evening.